Hello and welcome to the Omega Project version 3.0. This release comes with many years after the fact director's commentary for my former quote-unquote production studio 3D Pictures with its very cheesily animated intro. So the beginning clips here hint towards something that's going to happen, or that was planned, rather, to happen later on in the story. There's no sense in worrying about spoilers here, because, frankly, you should have watched the non-director's commentary version before this. In fact, if you have not done so, then I advise you to stop this video, watch the standard version of the video first, then come back and view this. So this is basically hinting at what was mentioned in the crawling text near the end of the video. That is to say, the plan for it to be revealed that Detective James Stokes, a secondary primary character, if that makes any sense, like the secondary main character of the previous Phantom movies that came before this. I believe both of those, even though they're in very broken states, are viewable worldwide. It didn't need any special edition to bring it up here. Anyway, he's supposed to have betrayed them and been behind all the shit that happened in the first place. I should also mention, a lot of these names here in the opening credit roll type thing are just made up. They're made up placeholders for the actors. I did have a few people lined up to do actual voices way back in the day. That would be Qbert, Random Room. I think there might have been another person. Two of their voices are in the video itself. I didn't voice over those lines. I left those in. And I'm honestly surprised that they were willing to do voices for a project like this, considering my reputation at the time. A well-deserved bad reputation. So in the original version of this, this was the final countdown playing in the background. It turned out to be kind of the subject of a joke on the old forums back in the day. And, well, frankly, it essentially just ended up being, you know, a kind of, hey, I like this song, so I'll just put it in as the car radio. Here I've got it as Russian Roulette by Atom Bomb, partially because it's less likely to get flagged by copyright, partially because it sounds a little more fitting for just car radio stuff rather than whatever the hell I was trying to go for with the final countdown. So, in older versions, this was an imp here in the front, and it's left over in some of the dialogue lines that I never got around to fixing. But the initial design for the enemies was not only to use the, Doom imp model, but to have its, like, official canon that they were intentionally designed to be that way by evil pseudo-Korean scientist general doctor guy. Now, this scene itself, I'm actually kind of proud of. It's a lot more dynamic than the usual thing that I made back in the day. I usually did a whole lot of static scenes because it was easier. As for this scene, it's a lot darker now because I have forcibly increased the brightness or the contrast in the video to make it look better. Hello. But this scene, I think I did a much better job, assembling the special edition with the voice acting than I did with the original footage. Somebody's being very loud in the background, but I don't really care. This is far from professional production. How many casualties? So the dialogue is cheap and cheesy, like why the hell would he care about the number of casualties in such a calm manner when he's being told that, an entire squad of people have been torn to pieces. And this is just, well, honestly, it's something that's a factor in the entire movie. A lot of very bad writing. It certainly didn't help. Well, suffice to say, I did a whole lot of real-time alterations of the script when I started reading out the lines. Now here we've got the first of 2, maybe 3 dream sequences that show up in the movie. Now, the way I make it look like it's a dream is very cheap and terrible, but that partially comes from the limitations of the 3D Movie Maker engine. I could have done a lot more, especially now in the special edition, with making it visually look like a dream. I may even end up doing that, which would make this much of the director's commentary not make a whole lot of sense. But essentially, it's his dead wife, Emily,
Our son.
trying to show him visions of the past. It's never explained when this happens. I don't think I even had plans to explain why it all happened.
Is he dead?
But it does lead up to a revelation that is also in the text scroll at the end. That his son Michael is the Phantom. Of course, it doesn't really tie into a whole lot of other things. Like, he does mention later on that... well, we'll get to that when we get to it. Now here, the original video was really terrible with the transition. It was literally him being away for 2 to 3 frames, and then just stop popping back in and defeated. I intentionally left out a few lines here when voicing, just because I didn't feel like jumping between effects in real time really quickly. Now, of course, this is just a goofy, very bad, lazy sequence running past an explosion that would have killed him, probably.
Emily, no.
And then running into a guy with a rifle. It also features a lot of stolen sound effects from somebody else's movie, which is commonplace with my old 3D Movie Maker films, just using everything as a resource. It's probably why this, or the first 2 versions of the Omega Project, are blocked on YouTube for the majority of the world. You know, so many stolen resources in terms of music that the old copyright troll business is, you know, just shuts everything down. Now, something I forgot to mention before, probably because I've been constantly talking this whole time, is, well...
What?
This was intended to be used with a custom palette that provides some sort of faked gradient lighting. And it did make it look a lot better than this, but I have no recollection as to how to make that work. And I don't really have the source files to, you know, re-record the official footage, or the original footage, with such a thing.
My God.
So the best I've been able to do is you know, put a few fancy lighting effects on that previous scene and increase the contrast. Fun fact, the title placed gigantically on top of that laptop is actually the name of the laptop my brother used to own.
You, man, this doesn't feel right.
And of course here, some really lazy MS Paint signs made up to be
Who knows what?
advertisement billboards. I did initially have my own voices covering the 2 guys in the background, but there was a codec issue left over from creating this on an old Windows 98 computer that broke down entirely, and I wasn't able to reuse the files at all. It was probably really terrible quality anyway, so it doesn't really matter too much.
I still don't feel good about this. Or you two go on inside.
Here we've got more of my unfortunately usual inability to create high quality scenes, which bugs me because you see things like the driving sequence earlier on, you know, where the monster ambush was, and, you know, for me at least, that was pretty well done.
Hey guys.
A well created scene. Again, within the context of my, like, early to mid-teens capabilities compared to, you know, the majority of the other directors out there for the 3D Movie Maker scene. And this scene kind of shows yet another... I'm not even sure what the appropriate word it would be for it, But I just used the hell out of that little model with a faked dynamic
Hello, sir.
lighting.
What would you like?
I'm completely skipping over the scene with the chalkboard and the guy turning around very slowly because it was... I just didn't feel like cutting it out, but it's got no point. Now here we're in the shop where Detective Rick Kimball is trying to pick up some weaponry for, you know, the right-take group of police soldiers. And all sorts of crazy shit is going on in the background. It's supposed to signify something screwing with his head, making him go crazy. But of course, of course, the way I set it up, the character himself completely ignores all of it until the imp pops up at the end and strangles him.
Yeah, sure. That'll be $800 total.
Other than that, the only really interesting part about this is how I faked reflections so many times. The original soundtrack was Don McLean's American Pie here, which probably helped get the versions 1 and 2, you know, blocked for the majority of the world because copyright, you know.
Call 911.
The current replacement, or the replacement that's gone now by this point because I spent so much time explaining other things, is Blood on the Walls. I don't remember who did it, but it's on John Romero's website for a free download if you want to have a look into and to listen at it yourself. Now here in this video version of it, I put a very long transition between then and this flashback
The nuclear warhead.
of a Korean doctor general type guy
Lives do not matter.
being a
Do it
total
anyway.
prick, basically.
Yes, sir.
And honestly, this entire sequence shows my inability to understand what nuclear weapons actually do. Because, like, okay, this is apparently, they're supposedly right outside New York City. So obviously I didn't understand geography either. I don't know of any mountains outside the city. And I doubt he's far enough away to have survived this blast. I do have to say, I do like the blast for the sake of, you know, the lighting and stuff that I was able to pull off there. Again, it looked better with a custom palette, but
All were obliterated. Nothing was
well, what can you do? I don't know how to get that to work. I considered it a very long wait here. That was probably a lot longer than it needed to be, but I'm too lazy to shorten the wait anymore. Maybe there was music there at some point that I forgot to put back in. So directly after that, we're treated to yet another flashback sequence, except, you know, it's another vision of somebody else's life, like what happened to Michael after he was captured.
You sure? It hasn't fared well so far.
And the dialogue, well, most of it's cut off because I don't have the fonts that I originally used here, and the replacement fonts is a bit too large. A lot of the dialogue is just really terrible, and I'm glad I revised it when I went to voice the lines, because it was more the whole the enemies are totally doomed imps, and we're going to point it out to everybody by saying that it was intentionally made that way.
Okay, let's turn this thing on.
Of course, the voicing here is pretty terrible. I just didn't feel like going through the effort of redoing it, partially because I don't have access to the effects with the new microphone, and I don't want to use the old one.
This kid is the guy the boss wanted.
Yep. Flying anesthetic. Have fun, kid.
So it intentionally is left vague what happens here, and the actual revelation as to what happened is one of the things that did not happen, or did not end up in the completed part of the film. So here we're playing the High Charity Suite yet again because I've reused it so many times. It just actually kind of fit with the whole sadness theme. I would have put up a higher quality version for the remaster, but I don't have my Halo soundtracks anywhere, and I didn't feel like grabbing one off the internet.
We'll get straight down to
So here,
those
it's a briefing, essentially. And it really showed that I did intend at some point to completely replace all of these dialogue boxes with voicing,
Johnson.
as I kind of sort of did here. The initial soundtrack was, I don't remember what it was called, but it was included in a Splinter Cell soundtrack, but I think it was actually from Advent Rising, or something like that. I replaced it with something, with, you know, some of the ship music from the end of Crisis, because I thought it fit quite a bit better for the sort of briefing. Hey, everybody get ready, we got shit to do here.
Thanks to Rick, we have the necessary firepower to combat these sons of bitches.
And, well, I kind of glossed over how bad some of the written dialogue was. I think you can judge for yourself how shit it was. Thankfully, I completely replaced a lot of it when I was doing the voicing to something a lot more sensible and remotely intelligent. Of course, the guy that was... I'm noticing now that I completely forgot to update this character's skin to match, you know, who he was. He was supposed to be the guy that was standing right next to the screen at the very beginning of the scene. And here you're shown precisely what the Johnson character was saying. You know, they kill, and that's how they reproduce. He begins transforming very slowly into the monsters. One of the character arcs for this character in the back was that initially that he had hemophilia, which I'm pretty sure I misunderstood at the time of creating this video, or creating this movie, and honestly, he wouldn't be in the police force if he had that. Now here, a lot of this was, or some of this was convenience, some of this was just fan service, kind of saying, oh look, I watched this movie called Doom that somebody made, very loosely based on Doom, so I'm going to Max Payne style put a bunch of frames up on the television and make it look like this officer's just digging around watching TV. It's crap, and I could have cut a lot of it in the special edition. I just didn't bother. I also sped up the this section here just for the sake of, you know, making the stinger make more sense.
Ah, shit. That's Jim's gun.
And this was intended to create some suspense in the sense that, you know, James Stokes appears to have been killed at this point, and, you know, the viewer is supposed to care because, well, logically you would care about the main characters of the story, but I did a really terrible job back in 2006, 7, 8, around that time. Did a really terrible job of actually making the characters so people would care about them. Other than maybe the main guy here, Rick Kimball.
I'm gonna need some backup down the TV hall.
I don't know, perhaps people might, even with the bad writing, be able to connect with him in terms of, you know, the whole lost his entire family background story. Some mysterious figure stops out and takes the guns. I believe the intention was that this was the Phantom picking up weaponry off the ground. Now the Danny and the group are rushing to Rick's aid. Even though he never said where exactly they were meant to go. I do remember the original soundtrack way back in version 1 of this movie was the Hawaiian 5-0 theme. Talk about horrible choices.
Here.
And of course we got some real grade A dialogue written down here. Shit.
Alright.
Looks like that's where we're going. Shit, we have to walk down a hall. Shit. Let's throw swears in because we're a teenager and swears for some reason still seem cool. Probably because school still yells at you for using them. Doo-doo-doo. It's hard not to try and not to feel the need to talk absolute tons of shit about the quality of these videos, even though this is the least bad of the set, probably. I believe this scene was another one that worked a lot better with the custom palettes, because right here it doesn't look like there's really anything that he's walking on but a few shards of paper. And this, I believe, is Qbert, or another 3dmoviemaker.com member, voicing that line that wasn't very well written. And a random room pops up as soon as the Phantom, or right about here, there we go. So that's where the two commissioned, quote-unquote, voice actors come in. I suppose if I had stuck around the community and not been a total dirtbag, maybe it would have been finished. Or, worked on a lot farther than it did. Of course, we got some more very lazily made backgrounds here. A lot more static shots. Very bad writing that I thankfully fixed when I voiced everything out. It's kind of repetitive to keep mentioning it at this point because it's essentially the same thing over and over. And here we continue to try to partially emulate Max Payne with a pseudo-graphic novel style prelude to the intermission that I thankfully cut out because really it has no place in a movie like this. In fact, a lot of things were loosely inspired by Max Payne for Rick Kimball's character, and it was in his intended voice, not that it ever came to fruition or came out in a very well way. Of course, some more really bad writing, really bad. Isn't really anything else to say about it. I suppose I could go a little bit into the production of this kind of video, how all these movies were produced back in the day. It was, well, it definitely wasn't pre-planned. You can probably tell that pretty easily. It's simply enough, everything was made up on the spot except for the big ideas that I dumped at the end in a scrolling text file. Well, this scene I actually kind of liked, if only because I think I did a semi-decent job animating the shooting in first person. Blood and gore in 3D Movie Maker. Developers probably never intended that.
He's right.
So here's another scene that's supposed to be all emotional. You know, somebody died, but I just did absolutely nothing to make this character
No, he's right.
memorable, other than his really stupid character arc that doesn't make any sense at all.
There's nothing we can
So there's not really a whole lot of point in caring about his death beyond, normal. A human being has died. I think one of the things I tried to do here was try to cement the beginnings of a possible relationship between these two. Kind of in a really lazy copy-paste version of, well, not really copy-paste, but lazy ripping the idea directly from Max Payne again.
Better be going.
It'd be
It's an army
like,
down
you know, Max after his wife dies, and then, you know, Mona shows up, and, you know, if you've played or seen the games, you'll know what happens there. Might be something that I mentioned in the text scroll near the end. And here we're winding down to the very, very end of the movie as it was recorded. The plot is essentially dead at this point. From here, it just, you know, everybody's continuing down to the armory. The Phantom here seems to lead Rick to a completely different location from the others. The others end up finding a lone survivor of some squad that you don't see,
God.
and engage in a new type of enemy that's never
God, help me,
explained
man.
or anything.
These things, they killed everyone.
Now here, the fake lighting, I think, was kind of decent in a really, really cheap way. Of course, given the age of this program's engine, you can't really get anything beyond a really cheap way of doing it. As you can see, Rick was led over to this elevator in the dark hallway that goes... I don't even know where I intended to have it reach. Horrible dialogue.
Just what the hell's your angle here?
Fun fact though, that fade out was done directly in the engine. Now let me edit it a little more so this goes a little slower so I can actually talk about the failed plans. Now, contrary to what this text said, I didn't run out of ideas, I just ran out of motivation to continue. So the basic idea is, as I hinted at before, and was hinted at otherwise in the movie, the Phantom is in fact Michael Kimball, and who he was killing was in fact Omega Project members. Though it doesn't really explain why he shot Jenkins back in the second movie. Maybe he was supposed to be a security guard or something there. There's a confrontation with Dr. General Katawaski. I don't even know what the hell kind of name that is. With a lot of monsters in the area. Cheryl, Danny, Rick all are wounded. Michael's thrown into a wall, knocked out because plot convenience. Jenkins comes in to shoot everybody up with a rifle. And then Katawaski shoots him in a pure Hollywood bullshit manner. Jenkins is able to exposit, you know, a lot of spoilers that, you know, James Stokes is a traitor, and, you know, that sort of thing. You know, all the while he should be dying and bleeding out. All while Jenkins is giving his Hollywood dying speech, the Dr. General guy runs away. And, you know, everybody's totally shocked that James Stokes could have been, you know, an insider with the Kanavai medical group in their bullshit. The Dr. General guy, I'm gonna keep calling him that because it was never established really well. He's eventually found. There's a big battle. Danny gets wounded again, ends up dying. Rick brutally murders Katawaski. I'm imagining now, like that one scene in Crisis Warhead where Psycho, you know, gets absolutely furious and slaughters this Korean nanosuit soldier at a certain point in the game. I'm imagining something like that, but more brutal, more noisy, and more violent. Apparently by smashing his head in with a cement block, despite mercy. James Stokes was apparently supposed to be behind everything. Behind the war, behind the murders of his Kimball's family, or something like that. I'm not entirely sure. He's ambushed by the two fuckbags that kidnapped Michael back during the war. Rick kills both of them. Paul tells where Stokes ran off to. Okay. This is supposed to be a big, epic climax fight on top of the building. It's revealed that James is a, just like the Phantom, the hybrid of a human and some genetically created monstrosity. It's a huge fight. He conveniently lands on self-destruct switch for the building. There's a bit of in-joke ribbing about that. And everybody gets the fuck out. Rushing out of the building before it explodes. And I guess it's supposed to be one of those Hollywood. Building explodes behind everybody. They all fly off and conveniently somehow survive without a scratch. I imagined it and still imagine it now as a lot better than I was able to type it out or speak it out here. But the I don't really know how to describe it otherwise. It's supposed to be, a lot closer to what one would call an epic than it ended up being. So that's my general director's commentary on this movie. It was disorganized, rambling, and off the cuff, as they would say. Which is perfectly fitting because it's exactly like how the movie itself was. I still submit that it's the least bad of the movies I ever produced, even if it was never finished. Daimos Anomaly was could be considered a runner-up for that, but at the same time, Daimos Anomaly never made it past 3 scenes, and its dialogue was just as bad as it is here. So, the credits will continue to roll here with the original credits for the voices and the people who made all of the custom components here, all to the theme of the Avalanche hovercraft music from the Crisis Warhead. And there really isn't anything else beyond that, so this is 0612 from 0612 channel, X612 Productions or something. I'm trying to make up a fake production company name, and I am out of here.